We'll go ahead and get started. I'm Aaron Strout. I am former chief marketing officer of Real Chemistry, lots of other different careers, author of a new book called Wire for Purpose, which is a little bit of what the inspiration is for today. You see the book off to the right, and also host of the Reaching Higher podcast, which is about influential people who are doing societal good. You are here to hear more about a smarter way for Gen Z to navigate the job market. And hint, the three of us were talking ahead of time. It's not just Gen Z. I think all of us who might be in career shifts or changes could use better ways to network, and probably are falling into some of the same traps that we're going to call out. And so with that, Beth Egan is going to do our moderation today, but we're all going to introduce ourselves first. So we'll start with Beth, and then we'll get to John. I have a few stats. Beth's going to do a little bit of housekeeping, and then she's going to lead us through some brief Q&A, and I won't steal any more of her thunder. So Beth, why don't we get an intro from you, and then you can transition to John. John, why don't you go while Beth is figuring out her mute? That way we won't.
Happy to. You can hear me, Aaron, right?
Yes, I can.
All right. So my name is John Hill. I have had a non-linear career path. If I started into my 30s, I was the internship developer at Michigan State University, setting up internship and experiential opportunities for 47,000 students, and then was named Director of Alumni Career Services, supporting 420,000 alumni in the job search. And timing is everything. I was placed in that role in 2008. 2009, global recession happens. Overnight, had to help people navigate job search 2.0. One of the primary ways to do that was using platforms like LinkedIn. Grew the largest college or university LinkedIn group in the world. Started to support navigation of alumni affiliation through Michigan State for the job search. And I ended up getting on the radar screen at LinkedIn. We negotiated the first partnership between the university and LinkedIn. And in that application, I got sucked through the looking glass and became the face for the higher education initiative there. We were responsible for university pages. For the alumni tool, was actually built after me. It was called John Hill in a Box. And if you have a university on your profile, we were the ones that mapped longitudinal career data to make that happen. Then I went and grew the largest entrepreneurial network globally through Techstars. I was there for a decade, cross-connecting 43,000 founders, mentors, investors, and corporate partners. Love the venture model, but it's not inclusive enough. And so 2 years ago, I joined a company called WAP, where we're trying to democratize entrepreneurship, give access to anybody to build a business. We have 25 million users on our platform, 200,000 companies that have done $3.5 billion in GMV. And I think it represents where the economic graph is going. It's not necessarily about finding a job, it's about being the job. And happy to talk about that through this.
That's awesome. Beth, do we have you back?
Thank you all for joining us. I am Beth Egan. I am a professor of advertising and run the graduate program for advertising at Syracuse University's Newhouse School of Communication. Rest in peace, Donald Newhouse, who passed away yesterday. I come to this really from two different angles. Prior to entering academia, I had a 25-year career in advertising in New York City, running media planning for many of the Fortune 500 companies. So I've been on the other side of the desk hiring a bunch of folks for all these years, and I've spent the last 13 years teaching folks and really just listening to all of the challenges that students are facing, seeing them go through, as John pointed out, some recessions, some downturns through COVID, and now through AI, which I know we will jump into and talk about. As Aaron noted, I do have a couple of housekeeping issues to address. As you can see, we are recording this webinar, and we will be sharing it out on LinkedIn afterwards, so you can go back and take a look. Or if you have friends that didn't have a chance to come, please come back and view the recording. There is a Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. If you have any questions, please pop them in the Q&A. We will try to get to as many of them as possible. Those we don't get to, we will reach out to you afterwards and follow up with answers to those questions. And please link in with all of us. And finally, I really want to thank Ascendancy Events and Thought Leadership, and especially Stephanie Agresta for helping us to put this all together.
Awesome.
So with that, I'll pass it back to Aaron.
Yeah. So one of the things that I wanted to just tee up from a stats perspective, and we can sort of make sure you get all this in our follow-up email, but I wrote a book. It's called Wired for Purpose. We won't talk about that here, although there are some lessons on networking, something specifically called Connectors Code. But I spent a lot of time. So we've got the platform and John, we've got the professor and Beth. We all also have had side hustles. I've spent a lot of time networking with people of all different shapes, forms, experience. Over the course of my 30 years in doing marketing, I've talked to a lot of people that are in college or people that never had to really network and now are found in that envious position. So I wrote an article and I posted it on LinkedIn and I got a lot of traction. So our friend Stephanie did suggest, hey, you should do a webinar on this and bring some other smart people with you, which I did. She did. So some of the stats that I was impressed with is I was doing my research using my friend Claude, because I do like to write myself, but there are a lot of things that you find when you reach out beyond your walls. And I thought I would share these with people because it reinforced some beliefs that I had. And then Beth is going to go and ask John and me, as well as herself, some questions that are all relevant to this. One of which is like, how can you sort of network, right? So one of the things that I thought was true, but 85% of jobs are filled through networking and are never posted on public job boards. So this is important because for all of you that are like the kings and the queens of, I filled out the online application, guess what? You're only hitting 15% of the 80 or the 100 that are out there. So don't ignore all those other jobs. And by the way, those other jobs are probably better than the ones that are getting posted. The next stat is one single referral is worth roughly 40 cold online applications. So one of the things that I spoke to a recent grad of Gonzaga that I was talking to, everyone's like really good. How I went and applied to all these positions. They never hear back. Well, guess what? You are one of probably 400, if not 4,000 people that are applying for all those. I'm not saying don't do that. It is an important piece, and a lot of companies will require that you do. Don't let that be your sole mode of doing it. And if you can get one of these referrals, which John, Beth, and I are going to teach you about, that's gold. The next is year over year, public job postings have declined by 15%. So just reinforcing that 85% don't show up. And this number of applications, the number of applications per posting, so bottom left-hand corner, has jumped by 30%. So you have less job postings, you have more people applying for them, you are having less and less opportunity because most of them aren't even posted. So these are all the things that you should be keeping in mind, whether it's you, whether it's your recent grad, whether it's a neighbor. And then the last two things, and then I'll hand it back over to Beth, is completing an internship. So you may be too far along at this point, and if you are, guess what? There's still hope. And John's going to talk a lot about that. But completing an internship, if you are still in school, whether you're an undergrad or a graduate student, makes a graduate 85% more likely to receive a full-time job offer. So if you're a sophomore, junior, even a senior, and you still have time, try to get that internship. It is gold. And then the last one related to that is paid interns average 1.61 job offers upon graduation, where non are 7.7. I think that's more than, or almost, yeah, more than double. So why would you not want to do that? I know it's not always easy. Think early and often. Most people sort of wake up in March or April, like, I should apply for internships. Start thinking about them in December or January, because if you don't, all the good ones go away. And a lot of them actually open and close enrollment well before sort of the March, April timeframe. So with that, I know we're going to move over to a little bit of group discussion, this really cool, image that I found, but I will go off of this and we'll pop up the thank you at the end. Beth, why don't you lead us in and let's talk about what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, well, I thought I'd start with the easy question. We're all talking about AI and hearing how AI is changing the job market. But would love to hear from both of you. How much of that do you think is reality and how much of that is myth? How much is it really changing and how much is it not?
John, you would take first cut since I just did a lot of speaking.
Yeah, I actually think it's high reality. If you look at placement rates coming out of universities, there's a decreasing amount of students getting first job out of school because AI is directly impacting entry-level positions. And it's a convergence of a number of things. So like the creator economy has proven out to be real. It's a unique opportunity. It's more entrepreneurial. The gig economy changed the contract between the employer and the employee, and AI is disrupting job market in front of students graduating, or really anybody who's looking for positions and opportunity. At a macro level, it's a shift in the economic graph. So that was early LinkedIn. If you go back to advent of LinkedIn, prior to that, you had this paper resume or CV that you pushed into whatever connections you could utilize, geography, social connections, university connections. When LinkedIn came, you had a professional identity of record that allowed you to get a job anywhere in the world and open up the economic graph. But that was to find a job. As things have shifted, we're starting to see an economic graph going towards being at least more entrepreneurial in mindset. And I would say we're starting to approach needing to be the job, which is a big shift, which is why I work at the company I do now, WAP, which is opening up the door for more people to be entrepreneurial. Job search is difficult to begin with. I think it's, like if you look at Aaron's stats, increasingly more difficult because there are more people at the front door. Now, there are certainly things you can do in the back door that make it a little easier to navigate. But there's no doubt that AI is having direct impact into what opportunities are available.
And here's my sort of add-on to that. So, John, I'm just realizing, by the way, your hat says kindness is dope, and I could not agree more. So that's awesome. One of the things that I think is so important is that there are people like Aaron Levy, who's the CEO of Box. There are people like Mark Andreessen, who started Andreessen Horowitz. For some of us old timers, he also introduced Netscape, which is one of the first internet browsers that we had. They're big proponents of the idea that if you use AI, AI is only making those of us that are sort of smart and or have some stick-to-itiveness, ingenuity, whatever it is, better. Right. And so one of the things I implore people to do, and a lot of people don't know this, but you have access to free generative AI tools. Like, I love my Claude, I pay for it. People love ChatGPT, but there's this thing called Gemini, which if anyone who uses a Chrome browser, up in the top right-hand corner, there's an Ask Gemini button, which can look specifically to the page that you're on, or you can go to Gemini and you can have it create images. It has limitations, but I would encourage anyone, irrespective of what your job is, irrespective of whether you use it for your job or something fun, a hobby, play around with AI and see what it can do. I think if you haven't yet, you'll be blown away. If you have, start to push the limits and see how far you can go. Like, where does it start to fall down? But I think, to John's point, this is a world where you are sort of making your own adventure, unlike the days where you graduated, you had a job lined up, and you just went into the workforce. There are jobs out there, but one, you have to sort of be the one that gets the early worm. And I think this is one of our subsequent questions, Beth, it's why you have to work on the networking thing, because it is who you know. I mean, it is what you know, but it's also who you know. And I might even hazard a guess that the who you know can be even more important than the what you know, because getting that door opened, if you're smart and you have any kind of sort of energy to do these things, that's the most critical piece. And that's one of the things I wrote about in the book under something called the Networkers Code, because of the fact that it really is this, or the Connectors Code. It's really just so important to do this. And I know that we have some of the how do you do it coming up. So with that, I'll stop talking.
Before we get to that question, I want to ask this next one because I think it's a great segue. And it's one that I hear from students all the time. What can I do to stand out? In fact, just before we hopped on this webinar, I got a text from a student. I've been applying to this company and I keep getting turned down. And I think when I get the question, so much of what I hear in that, even, this text I just received, was, what's wrong with my resume? What's not on my resume? And I think that's part of the challenge, and the students are asking the wrong question. So curious what, Aaron, I'll throw that to you first. What does standing out actually look like today in this environment that you just so aptly laid out for us?
Well, I'll give a few very prescriptive recommendations, and I think we'd love to hear your recommendation as well, Beth, since you do get asked this all the time. But if you're thinking about LinkedIn, there are some really tactical things. So one of the things I just found out recently, and John's probably very familiar having worked at LinkedIn, the algorithm is a critically important thing to understand. So do a little poking around and understand how the algorithm works. If you don't, there's lots of great information out there. one of the things that I learned was if your bio in your LinkedIn does not match what you're trying to put out there or what you're trying to connect with, LinkedIn largely ignores you, from a proactive posting perspective as well as feeding information to you. So make sure you're really crisp. And by the way, generative AI, this is another way where feed your resume into it and say, give me a good LinkedIn intro sort of bio that I can use. I think the other two things that I ask is be interesting. So one of which is, and I don't mean to make this all about AI, but it's really easy to write smart, provocative posts these days. You could also post a picture and share some images, share some thoughts around it. People, this is not Facebook, it's not Instagram, but people like humanity. And so sometimes, like on Mother's Day, I posted a picture with my mother. I'm like, I miss her right now. And I know it's Sunday. I feel like I'm going to step away from the business. I'm going to be interesting. The last is, and this might be the most or second most important, which is, the companies or the types of people or the industries that you want to go into. Go and start to follow those people, even if they don't connect back with you. You can follow anybody, or as long as they have their profile public. But start to comment on the content that they're putting out there. Like it. People like me, people like Beth, people like John, we recognize these things. We see when someone, you don't want to be obnoxious about it. You don't want to be this serial. I went in and liked 50 of John's most recent posts, because then it's like, okay, you're trying to get something from me. But strategically make a point of, if you've got 20 people that you would like to connect with, make sure that you're going in and saying, I'm going to explicitly go to Beth's profile today and see if she put a new post up. And when I see her post, I'm going to give it some thought. Maybe I will ask my generative AI or a friend that, is in the industry, what's something smart or clever or meaningful that I could comment on that, and do that on a regular basis. And you start to do that, people start to say, wow, I didn't know this Beth Egan person before. I didn't know this John Hill person before, but man, they're really starting to like show up in my profile in a meaningful way. And other people in their network will start to see this and start to think like, wow, I'm not hiring right now, but if I were, that person seems like they're thinking some thoughts. They seem to know how to use the tool. And so they're showing up in a way it's different. And it does not take rocket science to do those things. So that's my not so quick answer.
John, do you want anything to that?
Yeah, I could think about 3 or 4 things that are unique, or you could approach differently. But like I start with critical feedback. If you're not getting the response that you want, can you ask the questions that'll tell you how to get the response you want? So if you're applying somewhere and somebody responds, you're not our candidate, can you ask very specific questions about why not? Second, like I'm a huge believer in leveraging relationships to get in the back door of the job search. So can you do informational interviews before you apply for a company to learn, insights in the company that would help you in the application process, or get your resume, your CV, your LinkedIn profile to that person to go into the back door of the job search? Because if they take you down to HR, it increases the chances that you're going to be heard. There's a like button on company pages on LinkedIn. If you go there, companies are trying to sell themselves to you. So they're going to talk about their values, testimonials by employees. They'll showcase why they're a great place to work. But more importantly, they're giving the words that differentiate them from other companies. So they're telling you how to speak their language. And you can apply that back into your pitch to them, or your resume, or your CV. One little thing that I did when I got hired into Techstars, and again, it's creativity as part of the process. I had 20 people that were third-degree connections, so I wasn't directly connected to them, that were in venture that I wanted to engage with. So I copied each one of their URLs on LinkedIn and did a tickler file where once a month, all I did was look at their profile with no other action. At the end of that year, I was connected to 12 of those people. And social credit, like they connected with me, I didn't connect with them first, partly because LinkedIn's voyeuristic. People like to see, why is this person looking at me? But recently, I know of a student who delivered donuts to 20 places that they wanted to work. And on the inside of the box was their resume, right? That's creativity. That's cutting through the clutter. Like I look at how many people are using AI to develop their resume and CV. The challenge with that is everybody looks the same. And so you've got to figure out how to stand out.
Yeah, I love that. The only piece that I'll add on to that, which I think is really kind of a through line in everything that you guys said, is I think so often students are looking for the hard skills. Like, what is the thing that's not on my resume? And what I hear back from employers all the time is, I'll teach you the hard skills. and my company, my agency probably has their own process, their own tools that I'm going to have to teach you anyway. It's the curiosity. And by curiosity, curiosity is not, did you ask a good question at the end of the interview? Curiosity is you heard about something that you didn't know about before and you went and learned more about that. And how can you demonstrate those kinds of things in every way that you show up, whether it's your resume or your cover letter or what have you.
But Beth, you bring, I'm going to combine two of your answers. So, John, I'm a big fan of informational interviews. And I've had people that show up and they're literally like, I'm showing up and I'm expecting you to give me something. And I say, okay, I understand you may not have known, but one of the first things you want is tell me a little bit more about you, or I did some research. Tell me a little more about your company. Come and have a couple of interesting questions based on some recent posts or whatever they did. I don't really care, but people like their egos stroked, right? So even if John decides to meet with you out of the kindness of his heart, ask him a little bit like, hey, John, I've seen some pictures of you. And by the way, you have this like really cool kindness as dope hat. Where did you buy that? Like all of a sudden, John's going to open up and be a little bit more emotionally available because you were curious, to Beth's point, about something that was, related to them. So I think come in prepared and come in almost like you're going through a real job interview and be prepared to ask the person that's doing the informational with you. Don't make them too personal questions, but it's also okay to say, hey, like, where are you from? And I see that you went to college at X, Y, and Z. My dad went there and, he really loved it. Like people love that personal connection.
There's some great research that was done that showed they analyzed in an interview situation how often the interviewer spoke versus the interviewee. And when the interviewer speaks more, you're more likely to get the job, which is so counterintuitive. But I love that. So that is a perfect segue, to the next sticking point I hear over and over again. The students understand the power of networking. They, psychological, they get, oh, I've got to find this person. But, no matter what level that person is in the organization, why would that person want to speak to me? Like, how do I reach out to them? What can I say? They're not going to answer me back. And Aaron, you talk about this a lot in the book. I think really some great advice there. And I know, John, you're connecting folks all the time as well. So what's some real practical advice so John, I found that person and I'm ready to reach out to them. What am I going to say?
Yeah. So I've spoken at 250 universities, probably 300 to 400 conferences related to higher education. Like the interesting thing is I actually think most students don't know how to effectively network. I think the challenge is they're not necessarily aware of where the most opportunity comes from. And it's not your direct connection, first level connection. It's your connection of connection, second level connection. And they focus on this first level and not how to penetrate that second level. That first level, when I was at LinkedIn, Reid Hoffman was writing a book called The Startup of You. And he was able to show 4 affiliations that help you build a quality network. So number 1 was friends and family, which every student has, right? Number 2 was university affiliation, which we're talking about students who are going to colleges or universities. 3rd was shared work experience. 4th was anything you do to support yourself professionally. So events you attend, associations you're connected to, groups you're engaged with. And, if you build a network with that first level, it gives you access to the second level where the vast majority of opportunity comes from. He called that second level weak ties. And what he talked about was like connecting emotionally, bringing the barrier of entry through those affiliations at first level to give you access to the second level to do things like informational interviewing. So, hey, friend, we haven't talked in a bit, but I'm in the job search. We really love your help. We can catch up afterwards. I'll tell you what's going on. I see you're connected to this person. Would you be open to making an introduction? The second person, to Aaron's point, you want emotion, not transaction. Really interested in who you are and what you're about. Would love to talk a few minutes about yourself, right? You're leaning towards advice, which is giving emotion. In that conversation, ask, like what kind of opportunities become available? It showcases, are there fits for you there? What's the work environment like? How did you get to this role? Learning the pathway. right? You're trying on the suit before you're even going through the interview process, which is going to give you a decided leg up in that experience. But like that's how you network. And you know, the really interesting thing is I work with entrepreneurs. They'll build strategies around go to market or product development. What they don't do is strategies around relationship, which also dovetails with, you know, like finding a job. Map out the top 100 people who you think can help you out, and then figure out how to get introductions into those people. Start doing the very basic foundational work to get into conversation there. And you're going to increase the chances that they'll take a look at you as a candidate.
That's great.
Yeah, I don't have a ton to add, but I will say one of the things that I also sort of encourage people to do as part of that informational interview process is don't necessarily go and seek out the person that's the direct hiring manager. Obviously, that can be helpful, but the barrier of entry is often sort of a lot higher. Like if I'm looking for a director of marketing job and John's the VP of marketing, I don't necessarily want to talk, like maybe if he's the son of someone I know, or the, you know, someone that is a tighter or a hotter, stronger link, I might be inclined to, but sometimes find someone at that company that maybe is tangential to them, that does have a connection to them, but isn't the one doing the hiring, because then they can advocate for you, and they will be more likely, because John mentioned this sort of whole emotional connection. And if you're asking for advice, it's like, hey, I really want to get in, and this is the person I want to work for. Then you're a team, right? Now you're working together versus like, Beth, I really want to get a job for you, and like, will you please take time and meet with me? You may do it out of the kindness of your heart, but if you're interviewing 50 people at the time, it's like you probably aren't the most qualified a candidate, so I'm not sure I want to do this. So having someone else able to steer you, give you inside information, help you navigate, make the case for you, it's gold. And so that's one sort of little ad that I'd sort of build on John's recommendation.
Yeah,
That's
one little trick on that, Aaron, is if you focus on people who are in communication, social, business development, sales.
Yep.
If they like you, they're really effective at selling you internally, because that's what
Right.
they do for a living.
Great point. Great point. And I know we have about 3 minutes. Maybe we can stretch it to 5. So I don't know, Beth, if you want to do one more question, we'll try to keep it pithy.
We do have a closing question. And, you know, Aaron, you wrote this fantastic book, Wired for Purpose, that outlines all of this in such great detail with great stories. So I wanted to just close with, what does Wired for Purpose mean to each one of you guys?
Yeah, I mean, for me, and part of why I wrote it is I've literally been doing technology since the late 70s. I was born in the late 60s. My dad was a computer programmer. There's probably a few people that love technology more than I do. Maybe I have 2 of them on the call or 3 of them on the call with us right now. But the biggest thing that I've always seen, and this is the thing that, especially as we see this AI rapid adoption, I compare it to the Industrial Revolution. That happened over 100 years. This is happening over like 18 months, if not, more compact schedule. It's things like humanity. It's the willingness to be grateful and give gratitude without knowing that there's sort of any end goal, right? Thanking the doorman, thanking the person that checks you out, thanking the assistant. People notice these things, right? Being calm under pressure, being cautiously, or not cautiously, pragmatically optimistic, which those two go hand in hand. And then the give before you get. So to John's advice, if you're out there giving, you're trying to get these informational interviews, think about who else can benefit. Like, wow, I just met this really great professor, Beth Egan. Susan, let me introduce you to her. Like, let me see if Beth's willing, but I bet that, she might be willing to help you too. And I get such great advice from her. So proactively help your network, because there's a saying, which is a rising tide floats all boats. If someone's, you're helping someone else, particularly proactively, they will do cartwheels to help you in many cases. And I've learned this over the course of 30 years and have seen the benefits a million times over. So John, I don't know what you think, but.
Yeah, I mean, I have 3 takeaways. Like if I hear that term, one is build a network before you need it, so it's there when you do. Like your time to build your network is not while you're in the job search; it's months, years before. Number 2 is to build a quality network, and gave some of the framework to do that. Not a quantity network. But the most important thing, I'm not a fatalist when it comes to AI. I think things are going to shift. I think opportunity is going to shift with it. I think things like informational interviewing give you the pathway of where things are going and how you can align your skill set to that. But I don't want people to stop dreaming big and going for wherever they want to go. I'm like currently the VP of Story at WAP. I was the network catalyst at Techstars, largest entrepreneurial network globally. I was the higher education evangelist at LinkedIn. People created those position titles for me because they wanted me to recruit me to those companies. I haven't applied for a job in 22 years. And it's partly because I do well by others and then I do well by the job that I have. And so people seek that out. And so, like that dream big comes with some responsibility. It means you need to work really hard in any opportunity that comes in front of you. And the more you do that, the more that starts to spin into broader and bigger opportunities. But yeah, I've loved the topic of conversation through this. This is much needed. And I think people need to hear, like, there are steps you can do that'll help you navigate where we're at right now.
Yeah, and I'm just going to pop up the thank you screen because I know we're coming to the end here. So one of the things that you said, John, because I was also fortunate enough to not really ever have to apply for jobs. I tell people, there's nothing worse, and we've all been on the other side of this, where a company does some layoffs, or that a friend who gets laid off a lot got laid off again. And like, can you help me? And it's like, you need to do your networking before you need your job. So you said this, but I'm going to be super crystal clear about it. Do your networking ongoing. Make it a part of everything that you do, even if you're really happy at your company, you love everyone you work with. You never know what's going to happen. Your company might get sold, whatever. So the more prepared you are and the more you're really making this a muscle, the better off you'll be. And with that, I don't know, Beth, do we want to just give like a quick, this is where you can find us on LinkedIn. I know we're not hard to find and we did have our names and pictures up front, but I can just go first. I'm Aaron Strout, AARONSTROUT. See my book. Google me. I'm pretty much the same on all platforms, but LinkedIn is a good place to find me. And I share a lot of ideas from the book, the podcast, and other such. And John and Beth, I don't know if you guys want to go now.
Yeah, if you do a search for John Hill WAP, John Hill LinkedIn, John Hill Techstars, he'll find me.
Yeah, and for me, you want to look, it's actually Beth Donnelly Egan. I'm a little bit Irish. So search for me there. And yeah, this conversation has been so wonderful. And John, as you said, much needed. I think everything you guys talked about are things that students don't hear very often.
Well, and thank you everyone for listening in and everyone that listens in after. We will post this as we had said, and we'll probably do a light edit, although I think we mostly nailed it and didn't have too many technical glitches. So we can go from there.